Hello, I'm Jack from the Super Rad MMA Show. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to discuss whether or not Francis Ngannou has become unbeatable.
Jack and Mel weigh in.
If you like our content, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tag a friend who really likes MMA. It really helps us out. We have a podcast that comes out every Monday, and we have at least 2 YouTube videos a week, not including the podcast excerpts, which we put up 2 or 3 times a week as well. So Ngannou's an interesting one. He's an absolute phenom, a freak of nature. And the question recently was posed to us on Twitter. I will read it now. The question was posed from Castor Troy, which is a great name, obviously a reference to the great film Face Off. His Twitter handle is @CastorTroySRB if you want to follow him. And he asked, if Junior brings his A game and is as good as we know he can be, does he beat Curtis and possibly beat Francis in rematch? Well, it got me thinking about rematches and got me thinking about the heavyweight division. So whilst that was the question, which we will answer in the podcast, so check that out next week, it got me thinking about Ngannou. I don't see JDS getting through Blades, but that's for another video. A rematch for Blades with Ngannou goes the same way. He's been stopped twice by TKO, and it just got me thinking about what you need to actually beat Ngannou. People talk about Stipe beating Ngannou, and they talk about wrestling. It wasn't Stipe's wrestling that actually won him that fight. He did utilize wrestling to an extent, but it was his head movement from traditional boxing. I think Stipe's a Golden Glove state champ, and it was also his ability to out-cardio Ngannou. So I think that what you can learn from that fight is you need 3 things to beat Ngannou. You need cardio, you need wrestling, and you need boxing defense, head movement, footwork. So Stipe, we know, has already beaten Ngannou, but the question I would pose to all of you is, do you think he beats him again? I think there's a case to be made that Ngannou beats anybody in the heavyweight division at the moment. Obviously, he has been beaten by Stipe, and he was beaten by Lewis.
My balls was hot.
Sort of. Nobody won that fight. He obviously took that loss against Stipe and carried it into the Lewis fight. That Lewis fight was atrocious. It's one of the worst fights in UFC history. I don't think anybody would debate that. But I don't think it's indicative of how good Ngannou really is. I think that rematch goes in Ngannou's favour all day, every day at the moment. Ngannou has improved massively and is, of course, going to be rounding his skill sets. But he has that thing that Deontay Wilder has to his favour where he just kind of needs to catch you once. If you look at the list of people he's fought and done that to, it's absolutely crazy. You know, DC and Ngannou's an interesting matchup. But DC, his cardio recently seems to have been a little bit, I don't want to say suspect because, I mean, you know, he's still competing at a high level and still performing well to an extent. But he's looked at the pace on the feet. Certainly what happened to him against Stipe, you know, was the adjustment from Stipe for the body shots, and it took the wind right out of his sails. I think that Ngannou can beat anybody in the heavyweight division right now. Blades would be the one that on paper you would think would have the tools to beat Ngannou, but it doesn't seem like it necessarily works that way. A wrestler wanting to wrestle Ngannou needs to walk into that fire, essentially walk into that wood chipper and run the risk of getting clipped. And Ngannou has that power that he doesn't even need to hit you clean. And look at the Curtis Blades fight as a prime example. I kind of feel bad for Ngannou because he's been due a title shot, and you know the way that the heavyweight division is at the moment, it's not really looking like that's going to happen immediately anyway. Brock Lesnar, rumored to be coming back, makes sense. The heavyweight division could always do with a big name like that, and I think you could look at the Brock Lesnar fight against Mark Hunt and maybe apply something to an Ngannou fight from that. I would favour Ngannou in that because I think that he would inevitably hit Brock on the way in. But, you know, Brock Lesnar is a NCAA, you know, I think he's a champ and is an elite level wrestler. I think you can slot Brock in against one of the guys in the top 5 and he'll at least have a competitive fight. Do I think he's going to beat Ngannou if they were to fight? No. Do I think DC would beat Ngannou? Maybe. Do you think Stipe would beat Ngannou? Yes. But if I'm Stipe, I don't take that fight again. He implemented a perfect game plan. He fought brilliantly. It was the perfect game plan at the perfect time, and it really shut down the Ngannou hype train and really hurt him. Ngannou looks to be developing, from what we can tell, with every fight. He seems to be more well-rounded as the fights progress. We've seen him throwing more kicks recently. We haven't really seen his wrestling tested immensely recently. I mean, if you look at the Velasquez game plan, I would imagine that was the plan, was to at least clinch and try and make it dirty, but that didn't happen. You have to imagine Blade's plan wasn't to sit and stand and trade with him, so there's another guy that he's managed to not let the wrestling factor in. Would he be able to do the same to DC? Well, DC is physically very different to some of the other heavyweights. He is shorter and stouter. He has amazing wrestling. We saw him tip Barnett on his head. We saw him take Stipe on DC Airlines again. So he could easily out-wrestle Ngannou. The question is if he would be able to without catching a shot on the way in. That ultimately is the reason why I think that Ngannou has become certainly close to unbeatable. He only needs that one shot. I know it's boxing and I know it doesn't necessarily apply, but the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight was a prime example of this. Deontay carried that power up until the 12th round where he ultimately caught Tyson Fury, sending him to the canvas. I've seen people saying that was a slow count, it was this, it was that, it was the other. Well, regardless of what it was, what we learned was that he can throw the same amount of power essentially in the 12th round as he could in the first. It's the same thing for that rematch as I would have in the Stipe and Ngannou rematch, which is that it's just that one punch. And for that reason, I do favour Stipe, but I also think that Ngannou's chances would be much higher than the first fight. Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think Ngannou is beatable? Obviously, he's technically beatable. We've seen it done technically twice, but we're not going to count the Lewis fight. That wasn't really a fight at all. Who do you think has his number and why? What do you think you need to beat Ngannou? I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. Really appreciate all the feedback recently. Please make sure to check out the links in the description box down below where we'll link to our podcast, our social media, all that good stuff. And just remember, hit that little bell icon, smash that subscribe button because we have content coming to you multiple times a week on YouTube. And we'll see you soon. Peace.